the long description should have your keywords, or at least one or two of them. So we have movies, music. So if somebody searches for Liberian music, our long description here has already covered us, so that such that that person would probably find this app if they search for Liberian music or Liberian events or Liberian news. If you are doing a country app, you should also include the capital as one of your keywords, the capital of that country. For example, Monrovia is the capital of Liberia, so we added Monrovia news to our description. So most people, they either search for the country name. Second most popular search is for the capital city. Then, as part of your long description, if you are using an app that obtains content from other sources, especially sources which you have not formally received approval to use, for example RSS feeds cutting from other places, it's usually ideal to include a copyright notice. Google says it's okay, but including it does not mean your app will not be removed if it's against Google's policies. But to be on the safest side, always include the copyright notice if you are using other people's content in your app. Now, the copyright notice, I'm just going to read it out. This is something that you can always use for all your apps. It doesn't have to be changed all the time. For example, what I have here is copyright notice. Some content on this app are sourced from the publicly available RSS feeds of, let me just add that, of the website. Except where otherwise stated, we do not own or claim to own the copyrights to such content. We subscribe to the DMCA, and if you feel any content on this app is a violation of your copyright, please contact us and we will take action immediately. To contact us, email, and you put your email there. So this DMCA mentioned is, it means Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It's just a kind of legal arrangement that gives copyright owners the power to report your content, whether online, to report copyright violations of their content, whether online or offline. Subscribing to the DMCA, what that really means is that you agree to remove any content if the copyright owner complains. So it is better to include that, so that if for some reason Google checks your description, they will see that you are cool with removing copyright, so they know that if there's any copyright infringement, it's not necessarily your fault. So these are the things that you also have to put in place already before you start uploading your app. So now we know we have our descriptions and we have our images. By now our app should have finished uploading, so we'll just go back. Yes, when it's finished uploading, you see this page. So you see the app listed there, Liberian News app. This icon was inside the app, so it just pulled it out from the app and put it there. So now that you've done that, the next thing you need to do is to fill out the content listing, which was the second step that was there before. So manage releases, you can ignore that, that's for advanced users. Just jump straight to store listing. So as you go along, you notice some check marks there. Any section that you've completed, you see a green check mark, like the APK tells you that okay, you are done with that. So go ahead and click on store listing. This is the most complicated part. Not really complicated, but for somebody who doesn't have direction or who is probably doing it for the first time, it might look complicated, but it's really not. The first thing, the title is already there. We need to fill out this form. It can get a little bit long, but we'll do it bit by bit now. Remember, our short description shouldn't be more than 80 characters. Your short description should just be a quick summary of what your app is about. Go straight to the point. You don't need to write too much. So I'll just come to our notepad here and copy the one I already wrote down before. Paste it there. Exactly 80 characters. So this is what happens if it's more than 80 characters. It turns to red, telling you that you have exceeded the number of characters, so you need to reduce it. It doesn't have to be exactly 80. It could be more than. It could be, sorry, it could be less than 80, but shouldn't be more than. Now your full description can be longer, much longer, 4,000 characters, which is quite much. So I'll just copy this whole thing there and put it in a long description, which just takes up only about 590 or 4,000 characters. So if you still have other things to say, you can include them here, descriptions, but don't go into too much detail and don't stuff it with keywords unless or else Google will flag it and probably remove your app temporarily or permanently. So here I'll just put our email address there. So if there's any copyright notice, if the copyright owner reads this, then they'll know that they could contact us to have that copyright violation corrected. So the next thing is to upload the screenshots. Screenshots you can upload as can upload much, maybe about 8, 9, maybe more. But you need to upload different screenshots for different types of devices. The first one is the phone, and you have for tablet, Android TV, Android Wear. You don't need to upload screenshots for all of them. The only ones you should that are kind of mandatory are for the phone and maybe for the tablet. If your app does not work with Android TV, don't bother with it, or Android Wear. If you don't know what those are, don't bother with it. So we'll just come and click here to upload our first screenshot. While that is uploading, you can also click here and get your second screenshot. So we'll just upload 4 of them there, and we'll also include the icon as one of our screenshots. So those are the screenshots. And then for tablets, we also upload, you can use the same screenshots, or you can take screenshots from a tablet, but it doesn't really matter. So we'll just pick any screenshots here, just include 2 there. And for 10-inch tablets, we'll do the same. So you can use any of the screenshots. 3 can be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, any amount you like, but make it at least 1. So we have screenshots uploaded for phone, for 7-inch tablet, and for 10-inch tablet. So that is good enough. The next thing now we'll need to upload is the high resolution icon, or high res icon. The high res icon is the one that is 512 by 512 as it's written here. So these are the requirements, 512 by 512. Let's see if that will, if our icon meets those requirements. And then the feature graphic. Okay, so it seems we have a problem with our icon. We'll deal with that shortly. The feature graphic needs to be 125. Just try to select the best options so that your app will show up in the right places. So the first thing is application type. If it's a game, select games. Any other application, select applications. Then category, try to pick the category that is closest to yours. Ours is news, so we'll take news and magazines. Content rating. Content rating is a way for Google to know what kind of audiences they'll show your app to. For example, if you have adult content, sexual related content, then you need to select something more like medium maturity or high maturity. If it's very sexual or very graphic, a lot of blood, a lot of violence, it has to be high maturity, otherwise you can say medium maturity. But this content rating here is not the final content rating. There's another longer form that we'll need to fill, and Google will be able to detect the proper rating for your app. So here, since we have news, and some of those news, well, could have some violent content, so we'll just take medium maturity. Don't select everyone when you know that your app contains sexual or violent content, because that is a recipe for disaster. So it's better to be cautious and take medium maturity or low maturity. And then new content rating. Okay, so we need to fill this questionnaire here. We need to click this button and fill a longer questionnaire for the content rating. But before we do that, let's just complete this part of the form. Contact details. If you have a website, you can put it there. Your email. By default, Google will put the email associated with the Google account used to log into this Play Store developer console. But if you want to use a different email, you just delete that. We are going to delete that and put our official email address. Phone, you can leave that blank. Privacy policy. If you have one, you can put the link there. If you don't have one, you can just select not submitting a privacy policy URL at this time. So we filled out that part of the form, and we can come up here and say save draft so that we can move to the next step. So you will notice that publish app here is not active because we have not finished filling every aspect of the form. Until we finish filling all the details before we'll see this active, and then we can come to click publish. So we finished with the store listing. You can see our check mark is green and good to go. The next thing now is content rating. So this is where we fill out that the questionnaire for Google to properly rate our app. So the first thing you do is to click on continue. Okay, enter your email address again. Confirm it. And then here, please read these descriptions very well to know where your app falls into. But the common mistake people make is putting entertainment news apps under the entertainment category. Shouldn't be so. The apps that are meant for the entertainment category are listed here. Things like Talking Angela, Face Changer, People Magazine, Kama Sutra, and so on. So notice here they said, note that this category does not include streaming services. Streaming services are things like video apps and music apps. If you have an app that shows a lot of video or deals mainly with video, people can open your app and watch video mainly or listen to music mainly, then those apps, according to this description, should not be put under entertainment. Rather, they should be categorized as consumer store or commercial streaming services. Okay, so having said that, ours is a news app, so we'll select the category as reference, news, or educational, and then you start seeing different questions. Violence. Can the app contain violent material? Please note that the question here is, can the app contain violent material? Which means, is it possible for this app to ever contain violent material? So even if that is not the main focus of the app, for example, in our case, we anticipate that there might be some kind of news of accidents or gory graphic images once in a while that come up. So we are going to say yes, because it means there's a possibility that the app can contain violent material. Can it be visually depicted, which means can it be in the form of images or videos? We'll say yes. Can these images be gross or gory, which means images that include mutilated body parts, blood, and destroyed living things? So we say yes, because even though this content is not common on the app, there's a possibility that there might be a news story that has such things. So just to be on the safe side, we say yes to that. Can this violent material be referred to through text or spoken about? We say yes. And then move on to the next step, sexuality. So coming back, if your app does not have the possibility of showing any of those violent stuff, just pick no, 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 no. If you fill this form wrongly, the worst that would happen is Google will help you correct it. So what I'm just explaining here are guidelines, but you don't need to follow them to the letter. Sexuality. Can the app contain sexual material or nudity? Nudity is naked people, except in a natural or scientific setting. So what this question is talking about is if it's not a scientific or maybe cultural kind of nudity, like I know there are some cultures in South Africa that where the women probably go topless, that could be considered as a natural setting. So things like that don't count here. But if the sexuality there is of the kind of maybe skimpily dressed ladies flashing their body parts and things like that, or even pornography, you have to say yes. So just to cover and be on the safe side, because these days there are a lot of female images and even male images that border on sexuality. So we'll just say yes to that. Can it be visually depicted? Yes. Can these images depict nudity? Well, we can say yes. Can these sexual images be pornographic? A pornographic image is an image that was created specifically to arouse maybe a male or a female. So those are usually like these sexual kind of apps. So that's not really the focus of our news app. So we are going to say no to this question. Can this sexual material be referred to through text or spoken about? We'll say yes. Language. Can the app contain any potentially offensive language? Please note, if these questions seem to be quite confusing, there's usually a link close by, and if you click on that link that says learn more, it will give you more detail about what that question is talking about, but I'm just trying to summarize here. So can it contain potentially offensive language? What is offensive? Insultive language, or language that tends to maybe degrade other people based on maybe racial language and things like that. So we are not sure if that could crop up here. To be safe, we'll say yes. Is this the content focus of the app? That's where we'll say no, because that's not really what the app is about. So we're just saying there could be offensive language, but that's not the main thing that the app deals with. Can it contain mild swearing or language that could be considered offensive? We'll say yes. Can the app contain discriminatory language? Yes. Can the app contain sexual expletives? Sexual expletives are very, very obvious sexual references, like mentioning genitals, fork, and so on. So we can say yes. Controlled substances are illegal drugs and drugs that cannot be sold over the counter, or hard drugs like marijuana and things like that. So if we are not sure if our app can show all those things, we can also select yes here. and we'll let them know that this is not the focus of the app. So you are selecting yes here and you are saying no here, and this is yes. Can this app contain visual depictions of illegal drugs? Say yes. Can illegal drugs be referred to through text or spoken about? We say yes. So please note all these answers are dependent on the kind of app you have. And finally, miscellaneous. Does the app natively allow users to interact or exchange content with others? So if it's not a chat app, this one deals mostly with the chat kind of apps. So if your app is not an app for chatting, you can say no here. If you don't collect information personally from users of the app, you should say no. Does the app share user provided information with third parties? You can say no. Does the app share the user's current physical location to others? So this one is mostly for chat apps too. So you can say no here. We'll say no. Does the app allow users to purchase digital goods? If you are selling things through your app directly, not maybe having a website or having an e-commerce website opening in your app, that doesn't count here. If people pay directly through the app for your products, then you can select yes there. If not, you select no. So the questionnaire is quite long, but we finally got into the end. You can review your answers and so on, make sure everything is okay, and click on save questionnaire, and then click on calculate rating. So once you do that, it goes through all your options and gives you a calculated rating based on worldwide standards for various regions. You can see Pan-European Game Information 18 plus, IRC 18 plus, Google Play 17, and so on. So all these ratings will apply either if the country being if the country where the app is being displayed enforces such restrictions, or if the user has also specified that okay, we don't want to see apps meant for people below 18 or above 18. You can set those in some phones. That's when your app will not show up. But most people don't set that. Most countries don't enforce it so strongly. So what I've noticed most times is that at the end of the day, you still end up having your app showing to a lot of people despite all these ratings. So if you are seeing 18 and 17 there, don't be bothered too much. Just come down and click on apply rating. So if there's any error with this form, eventually you get a message telling you that your rating has an error and it has been corrected. So once you see this, you know that we've completed the questionnaire for the rating. You can see the green arrow checked. You also get a message from IARC. IARC is like the international body for rating apps and games and so on. So you get a message from them to the email you provided telling you that your app has been rated and this is the rating for that app. So once you are through with that step, the last thing we'll do now is to fill in the pricing and distribution for the app. So by default, most apps will show as free. Before you can have a paid app, you need to, according to what is here, set up a merchant account, which is a whole process on its own. But most apps tend to be free. Many apps anyway tend to be free, and we are going to use free as our option. If we try to select paid, okay, we can't even select paid, so we'll leave it as free. And then if you want your app to only be visible in specific countries, you select those countries here. But if you want it to be available worldwide, just click on this button that says select all countries, and then scroll below. If your app contains ads, you need to specify. Don't try to lie. Lying here could only put your would only put your app in some kind of danger of being removed from the store. So if there are apps, be truthful about it. Usually Google is able to tell anyway whether there are apps or not, but they just want you to specify it on your own. So we'll say yes, it has ads, because that's how we're making money from the app. Android Wear, Android TV, Android Auto. If your app has been built to also work on these different platforms, you can select this, but we can't select it now because Google has probably detected that our app is not meant for those platforms. And then you have other options here. Designed for families. If you can't opt in, you don't need to worry. Google Play for work, you leave that. Google Play for education, you leave that too. This is a special category. You can click here to learn more about that, but for most apps you can just Then the next section for consent. Marketing opt-out. If you do not want Google to promote your apps on your behalf, you select this, but please don't do that because it will make your apps grow slowly. So you can just leave that unchecked. Content guidelines. Yes, you need to select this one. Accept. US export laws. You need to accept. Very important. You must accept this too and not select this one. So once you've done those, you fill this whole form. We are through with this section and we can come here again and say save draft. So now the first thing we notice is that our publish app is now active. So we can click that. We can also see here that the pricing and distribution is checked to green and good to go. So this and this APK, store listing, content rating, pricing and distribution, those are the most important things that you need to fill out, and then you can go ahead and publish your app. So having done that, the next thing you do is just to click on publish. So the publishing process is actually sending it to Google's engineers. Sometimes they check through the app to make sure that there's no content that infringes on people's copyrights, and when the app is okay, they will now accept it. But before it starts appearing on the Play Store, it could take several hours. It doesn't just appear immediately. In fact, it could take up to a day. So once you do this, you just go away and wait for, let's say, about 5 or 6 hours or 12 hours, and you check back. So this is the name of our app, com.library.news.app. And when you've done this, if you click on submit and wait for some hours, when you come back here, you should be able to see your app listed in the Play Store. And if you click this Android icon here, it will bring you back to all your applications. So if we go through now, we'll see this is our new app telling us that it's pending. So when it has been accepted, you see it showing as published. If it's not accepted, it may show as suspended. So when you are making your listing, the images you use especially, you need to be very, very careful so that you do not use an image that is copyrighted, which belongs to somebody else, because that could lead to Google suspending your apps. There are some rules. There are some apps you cannot just go there and publish. For example, don't just pick any, maybe a newspaper or a popular entity, and try to create an app that makes it look like you are them, or you have been given permission to do that. If you look at this, our listing here, you will see we have something like this: Punch Nigeria, Newspaper Nigeria. So this app was built to make it appear like it belongs to Punch newspaper, which is a popular newspaper in Nigeria. Google was able to detect that this is a copyrighted material or image, and the app was suspended, and we were asked to provide written documentation to show that this Punch newspaper brand actually belongs to us, or we have permission to use their branding. So if you have permission, just try to obtain something in written form giving you permission to use the brand. If not, try to avoid it. Another thing you should try to avoid in your images is pictures of very popular people like actors, celebrities, and so on, because many of those people also have copyrights over their images. You can't just go there and pick their images and use in your apps. But if you're able to do all of that and make sure that you don't infringe any copyrights, then you should be good to go. So that is how to upload an app to Google Play Store. See you in the next lecture.